I personally think that Web3 has been super overhyped. For example, all these NFTs and pictures, these JPEGs, or so many Web3 companies which weren't generating revenue but selling tokens for crazy money. For us, it's not just buzzwords. Web3 or blockchain, it has a specific purpose.
Today I'm speaking with Albert from Stack3. Albert is a Bubble developer and Web3 enthusiast, and he definitely puts his money where his mouth is in terms of his belief that the world is heading towards a Web3 decentralized future. He is the co-founder of Stack3, which is a DAO that builds apps professionally for people on Bubble. And if you are into Bubble and if you're into Web3, I would definitely recommend checking out Stack3. Lots of threes. The link for that is in the description. I was a little nervous about this conversation because I kind of feel dumb every time I talk about Web3 because I'm not sure I fully understand it. But fortunately for me, Albert was a fantastic guest. He was down to earth, unassuming, and I found the conversation to be very helpful. I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. If you're liking this podcast, make sure to, first of all, drop a like on this video and to subscribe to the channel. You're listening to User Stories, episode number 15. All right, Albert, thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to begin with a little bit of a confession, and that is that I'm quite nervous for this interview. And that is because every time I talk about Web3, I kind of feel dumb. And so I'm hoping to understand both a little bit more about Web3 after coming out of this interview, and also, of course, about what you're working on at Stack3 and all of the things that you're up to. But forgive me in advance if I ask you some rather maybe silly and unsophisticated questions. But let's start with one that is hopefully simple. Tell me, what is Stack3, and why have you decided to devote so much of your precious time to working on it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, and I'm really happy to be here. No worries about feeling dumb about Web3. I also feel dumb many times. I just have enough people, teammates around me who help me out with whatever it's hard to understand. But I can do my best to give some explanation as much as possible. Web3 is just a component of the overall visions that we have and overall what we're doing at Stack3. Stack3, you can imagine so there are marketplaces for matching talent, specifically no-code talent with founders, right? So there are plenty of those. So the concept is similar, but there are some differences. First of all, it's a decentralized marketplace, meaning that our talent pool is, we pool them decentrally in our app, in our vetted pool, and in Discord. And we try to make it easy for them to quickly jump into a project, whether if it's it's a bigger project or if it's part of the project, so-called bounty. So you can imagine a team is working on a project and there are certain blockers on the project. So we can quickly find an expert from our pool who can quickly jump into the project, help us solve this small specific issue, and unblock the project, right? Without the need of hiring someone full-time for that and so on. So I would rather say it's kind of an agency, but decentralized type of agency.
Right. So I was reading your website, and I saw that, and as I was going through and thinking about in my own mind what you guys were doing and trying to conceptualize it, I thought, okay, well, this seems like a big agency kind of where they have, a lot of different designers, developers, project managers, etc., who can come in and work on projects like you just said. Why does the decentralized aspect of that matter? Why is that important to, let's say, let's imagine that I'm like a founder who's interested in Web3. maybe doesn't know too much about it, but I see your website. I see that you have this decentralized team. What, I guess, is the advantage of your team being decentralized versus any of the other agencies that exist that have this, also a team of developers, designers, etc., but who don't have this decentralized way of organizing their organization?
Yeah, very good question. So there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, no code is still in early stages, and there are many experts who are spread around the world, right? So we have really good experts, Zeno expert based in Chile, or someone based in US, and at the same time we're based in Berlin, and this way we're able to bring in all the talent, all the resources into a project quickly. So after COVID started, most of the companies started to adopt this remote work thing, right? And now after this regulations got a bit easier on that, and companies started to call back the resources. Many are not willing to go back. So after COVID, I started working from home, and I stayed home, and I never want to leave my home office, or I don't want to go to the office anymore, right? And so we think there's going to be a bigger, more demand from companies for remote talent, and considering also that this remote talent is spread around the world, so it's very hard to find specialized and very high quality no-code talent just in Germany or Berlin. And decentralization gives us the opportunity to bring in all these talented people onto a project, create a very specialized, very high quality teams. And we usually work also with on a bit larger projects, usually with companies. So it's kind of allows us to bring everything together, which is needed to accomplish complex projects.
Okay. So, I know that I want to get into AI a little bit later in the interview. And I know that you're doing a lot of stuff in the field of AI, bringing it to Stack 3. But one of my favorite things to do lately with ChatGPT is to go and when I don't understand something, if it's written in like complex language or whatever, if I don't understand it, my favorite prompt for ChatGPT these days is to grab that subject or whatever it is that I don't understand and tell ChatGPT to explain it to me as if I were a 5-year-old. And it actually does a pretty good job of that. It like uses all sorts of analogies that you would use with a young kid. So help me understand that more, because when you were speaking about decentralization there, and you used the word yourself, you used remote, right? I understand that, we're living in, basically 2023 now, 2022, but in a few days, 2023. And the world has changed after COVID. Like you, I am very used to living in my home office now, essentially. And the thought of having to commute to an office or go back to work in that old way makes me feel nauseous. But what's the difference in your mind between like just a remote team and one that's actually decentralized? I guess what does decentralization actually mean in this context?
Yeah, decentralization. There is also another Web3 component to what we do, and I'm happy to explain that as well. But decentralized means that if it's an open marketplace, let's say, and you're a founder, for example, CodeMap. I think CodeMap is a good example. You would go on CodeMap and you would start looking for people, right? So you would maybe find 5 or 6 people. You would do calls with them, and you would, based on your just basic judgment, you would say, okay, this one is suitable for the project, right? So we do it ourselves, all this process. So you're a company and you need a team. So instead of hiring a team, a full-time team of experts who would implement the project, we would, you know, create the team. We have the vetted pool, so all the people that we work with are super good, yeah, and we make sure that that's the case via our this on-chain vetting process. We create the team, so we have our SaaS for companies solution, so they get their own dashboard with analytics, with overview of the team and so on. They can also augment their team very quickly. We
What does that
create
mean to augment a team?
augment the team. Let's say you are not performing well at some point, or let's say you just no longer have availability. You just want to leave the project, so we can quickly, in a matter of few days, find a replacement, right? So in this regard, I would say we're rather an agency, but very flexible type of agency. You know, if you're an agency, you're stuck with the, I don't want to say stuck, but you only have the resources that you have, right? But in our case, it's a bit different, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, the thought that came to my mind, tell me if this is right or wrong. This might be a silly comparison, but as you were speaking, I was thinking, like, sometimes I play fantasy sports over here and I like draft my own hockey team full of players, and I have, you know, if a player is injured, I can drop them and pick up another player. And it seems like what you're describing is kind of like that, but maybe with a little bit more guidance from, let's say, you as the leader of this organization. Whereas, you know, there are definitely agencies that exist that have this model where you have this team, they have this whole team of designers, developers, whatever, that they're organizing behind the scenes, and as a client, you get access to that team. But maybe I think what you're saying is like you just have more as a client flexibility and control over the different types of team members that you're working with. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we have more flexibility, and of course, our clients have more flexibility. If a client works with a centralized agency, one thing is they get kind of dependent on the agency, right? A second is there are overhead costs associated with an agency. You know, they have their fixed pool of people, few fixed workers, which need to get receive salary on a recurring basis, right? And no matter if there's a project available to supply the money for this project or not, this you know these people have to receive their money, so their salary. So there are plenty of you know sorry plenty of issues as you can see with decentralized type of agency. It's like okay, I forgot the English word for it. When you know the sink in the kitchen, when you open the water and turn it off, how's it called, the sink?
Like a faucet.
Yeah, faucet. You know, it's like a faucet. You can open and close it anytime you want. You know, and the cost is not. The cost is you know, whenever you have these people on the project, working on the project, you pay these people. It's not like you have to pay people if there's no project, for example.
Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Okay. So on the client side, and we're missing obviously one of the big things that are reasons why a client would come to Stack 3 in particular, which is obviously too that you guys specialize in Web3 development, which is its own niche too. In addition to that, the actual benefits of working with a decentralized organization like Stack 3 seem to be that I come on as a client, I have more transparency into who I'm working with and more flexibility in terms of if something if something goes wrong, I can quickly swap out one team member if they're not performing well, bring in another one, and I can see all of that right in front of my eyes. I don't need to depend on this agency to solve, or this one person who's leading my project to solve everything for me. And also that the cost structure, what you were saying in that last part, I think is just more transparent. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's one aspect. There's another aspect also. There's this misconception about Bubble and no code in general, that you just need one guy to create the solution, right? So one of the recent projects that we had, it was quite a big one, and we had quite a big team working on it because it was a larger scale project, and other than Bubble skills, there were Zeno skills required, there were coding skills required, JavaScript skills required, and we had to bring in all these people together. We had to.
How many people? I'm curious.
So we had two Bubble developers, one of which was me. So I'm also basically, I'm earning my money as a developer as Tech3 basically, right? I'm not charging margins and stuff. And there were two Zeno developers. There was a project manager, a quality assurance person. So you can calculate 6 people, right? And yeah, so basically bigger, more complex solutions, and for bigger companies, they require dedicated resources, specialized resources, and also a project manager who would manage these resources. Everything has to be more structured and specialized. If you compare with a project which is a low budget project and it's just Bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we've been talking, all of our focus so far has been on the client. Someone coming who needs an app built, coming to your organization and saying, please help me build this thing. But a lot of what you're talking about too, I think maybe the more interesting parts of your organization happen in terms of just how things are organized behind the scenes. You guys are a DAO, right? A decentralized, autonomous organization. And this was one of those things that I went to ChatGPT and said, explain it to me in simple terms. And as far as I understand, what that means is that really the rules about how your organization runs are written in code for everyone to see, so that there's no kind of, I don't know, I guess you have to explain that to me. Like, is there a person who is running things that has more say than other people in the typical way that like the founder of a business would or the CEO of a business would? Or how are decisions made behind the scenes? You just said something interesting, that you earn your money by just being a developer within the Stack3 ecosystem. So how does that work in terms of the co-founders of Stack3? How do you guys make decisions? How is it different behind the scenes in terms of organizing your business when you have this DAO?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and here's where actually the real on-chain component comes into play. So we have, on the one hand, actually there are so many things, so I'm also getting confused sometimes, so many different work streams, but I'll try to explain. So we have the core team, and right now we started with 3, right now there's 5 of us. And underneath we have the guilds. This is the vetted pool of developers and designers and stuff. And then we have the more public, structures. So we, on the other hand, we also have this fellowship program, which was mainly my initiative. And the intention of this fellowship program was to kind of teach people and also recruit people into team and core team and guilds based on their performance. And after the fellowship, we included two guys into the core team, so they joined us as a project manager and core team builder. So now there's five of us, and also many joined the guild in the process. And right now we're implementing the so we're planning to issue our government token sometime next year. And at this point, we're issuing probably in January a voting token, a type of a preliminary token. And many of the proposals related to the in which direction the DAO is going to go, or even type of decisions like how we distribute a part of the treasury money and so on. This will be made by votings of the core team and by votings of the guild members, right? Yeah, so this is the approach that we're going towards when it comes to making decisions and overall governance, right?
Right. Okay. So, one of the things that happen, or one of the reasons people found businesses and people start businesses, is to make a lot of money. Right. The idea for a lot of people is you start a business and you hope that over time you can kind of scale things so that you can have this system that generates income for you, that generates profit, and eventually can kind of have this, remove yourself from that system so that you can still profit and you have this kind of thing that's generating cash for you, right? How does that work for you guys as founders of this agency in a decentralized organization? Is it, let's say that like things go really well and your agency starts making a lot of money, do you as founders take more of that eventually? Is that written into code? What do you do as founders of this organization who started this whole thing and who you could argue should take more of that profit than someone who just started? What does that distribution of funds look like?
Yeah, exactly. So I started this, so that means basically I shared the most risk, and I shared the risk over a longer period of time. So obviously, as a part of as a member of the core team, I get a bit more tokens, I would say, which are like shares of the DAO. But overall, DAO is something that is supposed to be more democratic, right? And something where everyone has part of the share ownership. And it's a bit different concept than a company. And I make my money. I work on a few projects, and I do make enough money with my bubble skills. I I would say I have good skills, but yeah, and so do also other people. So you could say I'm not that you know yeah, money is not like the super key thing for me, but I do make enough money, and I'm also super happy that I have the chance to work from home and not in the office. So I consider
Sure, but you
myself.
said it yourself too. Like and that's exactly it. You're taking most of the risk of someone who's starting this organization. So is it just that it's like the agreement is more transparent and written in code that like if we profit this much money, this is how much the founders get? And let's say that like, obviously as businesses grow, things change. If you wanted to change those rules of how money is distributed within your organization, is it that, hey, this is what we wrote in code, we can't change this without having some sort of vote within our organization? And depending on the number of tokens or the shares you have, which is really what it seems like, right? The shares that you have in the company, that's how much of a say you get in the vote. Is that
Yeah,
it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're totally right. So this kind of things are reflected in the smart contract code, right? And we are, our my other co-founder is the tokenomics expert, and he's the one who's working on the tokenomics part, right? And in the end, when we roll out the actual governance tokens, it's going to be these things are going to be reflected in the tokenomics in the smart contracts of these tokens.
Okay, that was one of my other questions for you. I saw that your token is coming. Why? And again, my challenge for you is to explain this to me as if I were a 5-year-old. Why is a token, having your own token, a necessary part of running this organization?
Yeah, exactly. First of all, a token will come probably in a year or something, because we still have to figure out some things on the way. I mean, it's quite a big venture, and has many aspects. But token is a really good thing. So why? Because it allows the organization to be very well aligned when it comes to interests. So if you have lots of conflicts of interest in a company, you know, token is something that can solve this issue. So as a builder, you not only get a salary, but you also get voting power, and you get ownership in the entire enterprise, which makes you more aligned and more incentivized that the entire organization succeeds, right? So you're kind of more aligned in terms of interest with the interest of the entire structure. So for me personally, it's the main advantage. But there are also more advantages, since you work with smart contracts, so the votings are more structured, and there are less ways to manipulate and so on, because it's basically, it's done on chain or by a smart contract, not a person.
Now, if I come to work for your company, and let's say that I work on a project, you said that I get a combination of a salary, and then eventually, I know that you guys are working on the token, but eventually I'll receive this governance token too. What is the salary paid in? Is it my choice? Can I say I want US dollars? Or I imagine that you probably have a lot of the people who do work for your organization are crypto enthusiasts who might choose to be paid in another form of crypto. But is it my choice, or how do you handle that? What do you pay the actual salary in?
Yeah. So we don't pay fixed salaries. We pay in tokens, and people who join us, they get a contract, which gives them, tokens. So the contract is based on the future governance token issue, right? At the same time, you work on projects. We not only do Web3 projects. I would say Web3 projects are mostly only 50% of the projects that we do. We also do bigger projects, traditional projects, but for bigger companies. And if you're part of the guild, you can choose a project. You can work on the project and earn high hourly fee, and usually almost 100% cases, the money paid for the projects by clients are normal dollar-based, fiat-based money.
Right. And okay, so it's a mix of both then. And in that case, like if the client pays in US dollars, let's say, and that's what I want to take my salary in, that's totally okay? Or do you convert it to a token then inside
No,
of
we
your
don't.
organization?
No. We don't convert these things into token. You get your money just the way you would get your money if you would work on a normal project, right? So in just in US dollars. Yeah, and on top, basically, on if you're part of the guild, if you're part of our core team, on top of that, kind of, regardless of the project money, you get an ownership, right? If you pass the vetting process, if our team wants to have you, you become part of our organization, you also receive tokens,
Got it.
basically. This is how it
So
works.
it seems like, I mean, especially if you're doing a project where you're paid entirely in these tokens, it seems like the point of the token in part too at the beginning, or a consequence of it, is that really the people, especially at this early stage, um, are really buying into the future of your organization, right? It's an investment in this stack 3 that is going to, as you get more and more business, become more and more valuable, and these tokens will start to matter much more, right? Are there like, do developers come on who are skeptical of that and who would rather be like receive a mix? And how do you, I guess, like, especially in these early days as you're building this thing up, how do you deal with, let's say you have like a really skilled developer who wants to come work for you, but who is like, I think that you guys are going to do well, but I don't know, anything could happen. Stack 3 could go under. And if it does, then all of a sudden these tokens that I have that I've been being paid in are not worth anything, let's say, right? So how do you deal, like, if I was a developer coming onto your team and had that concern, what would you tell me?
Yeah, totally understandable, the concern. And there are plenty of people who do not believe in this type of things, right? Token and so on. And that's totally legit. And you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but yeah, it's a venture. It's an early stage startup, partially operating with tokens. And if you share the same passion and the belief and the drives that we have, then you fit into our team and let's make that happen. But on the other hand, you have to take into account that if you're part of our organization, you're going to work on a project. So you're going to earn money, if not more than if you would do it as a solo freelancer, because we work with companies and the company fees are quite high. And and probably 20-30% of your time you're going to contribute to developing our internal solutions and what I mentioned, the dashboard for the clients, or the vetting system, or the AI based scoping or other type of automations. These are also based on contributions from our builders, right? So it's not like you just get your tokens and wait if it's gonna work out or not, but you also work on projects and earn well enough, I would say.
Okay, got it. But okay, so one last question on the tokens. Let's say that I'm all in on Stack 3. I come in, I'm doing well, I'm earning these tokens, and that you guys start to do really well. And best case scenario, like things are going perfectly to plan, and in 3 to 4 years, again, the business is going really well. But let's say at that point I want to exit, and give back my voting rights and basically like sell off my shares in a company, is the way that I'm thinking about it. How does that work? At what, like, how would you cash someone out of the business, let's say, or buy someone out of their shares?
The requirement for that is the secondary market with demand for your tokens. And
Okay, and I guess that was like maybe the fundamental point there. How do these tokens have value outside of the organization?
yeah, the same way as shares of companies. So if your company is performing well, so you have good metrics, you're making money, and yeah, and also the outside perception of all of that, you have high value. Also the expectation how it's going to be in the future, because a share or a token reflects also the future development of a organization or company. So is there so if yeah, go ahead.
No. So I think it's starting to click for me. So let's say we'll keep that example, and in 3 to 4 years, I want to move on and do something else. But at that point, Stack 3 is killing it, and everybody knows about Stack 3. And there's a lot of demand to, let's say, like be part of that team, whether I'm a developer or just want to hold this token to have shares, like invest like I would in a normal company. Then I could buy that token from someone else and do that sale.
Yeah, exactly. So if the tokens shoot up in value because Stack3 is killing it, you can and you have tokens, you can sell it and for really good money because probably there's going to be demand and secondary market for it. If not, then unfortunately not, but it's part of the startup risk.
Right. Right. Got it. Okay, let's transition a bit, and I wanted to one of the things I wanted to ask you about was just more the psychology of working within this space. So I think it's a really the moment that we're having this conversation at is an interesting one. Just what is it? Probably like a month and a half now. FTX collapsed, and that was the biggest scandal of our generation. I think one could argue, and I was following it closely, and just within my own bubble, it seems like a lot of much of the excitement around Web3 has, as of late, just kind of diminished. And a lot of people are skeptical about a lot of the stuff that's happening within this space. Now, you could argue too that Web3 has gone through these wild swings in terms of just like how excited the general public is, let's say, in the space. That's happened before. But with this particular collapse, it seems like there was something different about it, where there's this scandal and this corruption at such a high level that a lot of people have lost a lot of trust in this space. At the same time, after this FTX collapse, we see ChatGPT released, and again, within my small little bubble of the world, it seems like a lot of the excitement suddenly just like pours all into AI. And I've seen quite a few tweets and memes about that are kind of commenting on this, just how fast the hype train, let's say, swings into something new. Everyone was excited about Web3. Now all of a sudden, everyone is excited about AI. What is it like for you working in this space at this time? How do you deal with that swing of excitement?
Yeah, very, very good question. And definitely what you said, this reflects the public sentiment, what happened lately. And I personally think that Web3 has been super overhyped for, including FTX and stuff. The important part is what is the company doing? These are the questions that you have to ask. And what is Web3, the added value of Web3 for the company, right? For example, all these NFTs and pictures, these JPEGs, or so many Web3 companies which weren't generating revenue but selling tokens for crazy money. This is, of course, overhyped and the bubble. For us, it's not just buzzwords. So Web3 or blockchain, it has a specific purpose. One purpose is the vetting. So we kind of have this vetting mechanism. And after finishing challenges, after finishing a project, our builders receive on-chain type of non-transferable tokens, which we use as a vetting measure, right? So we say they gained 100 experience points working with Bubble. And then we can say it's a demanding project. You need to have at least 4,000 experience points, right? So it's a vetting system which is not just subjective, but has some kind of measure, quantitative measure, and it helps us with the filtering and allocating talent with projects. And the other thing is the token. But again, token is helps us get aligned, as a full structure, get aligned in terms of a vision and a goal. But in the end, it's also not the main purpose of what we're doing. In the end, we're trying to make money, do high quality work, and keep the client satisfied. And until now, we've done plenty of projects, and we're over 500,000 GCV contract volume, and that's the main idea that we have in mind when deciding on things. Not just is it Web3 or is it AI? What is the buzz about right now on the market? But what is going to bring value to the company, real value, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems, especially after just diving deep into how your organization works, that really, I mean, Web3 is just more of the tool that you guys use to run an organization that is not really so different from any other organization. You guys focus on doing work for clients. And if you do good work, good things will happen. You'll get paid and you'll make more money. And it seems like the tokenomics, really, like the way that I understand it after speaking with you, and speaking, let's say, from the perspective of someone who would join your organization as a developer, it seems to be a way that where company ownership is just more transparent and easy to understand, and a way for me as an employee coming in to not be an employee but an actual owner in the company in a very real way. Is there a massive risk associated with it? Of course there is. You're gambling on this company, which you are, I guess, anyways, as an owner of a company. And you're gambling on the fact that this token will be worth value and that to someone else when you eventually want to buy out of this. But it seems like you guys are very transparent about that risk and that people know what they're getting into when they come in to it, right?
100%. For me, the important thing is everyone is on the same page as me when it comes to motivation and everything, because it's super important, and that enables us to do it. Of course, risks also, you mentioned there are risks, but people, yeah, I mean, you're right, I would say. And also one more thing to mention, AI. You said, of course, AI is super hyped now. It's another hype wave. Of course, AI has more substance to it. Definitely, I totally agree with that. Compared to monkey JPEGs, for example. But yeah, so we identified the value, and right now we're almost there with using fully AI for project scoping. So we're fine-tuning our own AI model to do the scoping for us, and there are plenty of opportunities. So the first question we ask ourselves is, and definitely anyone should ask, so what's the real added value, right? Okay, it sounds good, everyone thinks it's cool and stuff, but is there real added value? Is it going to make the processes quicker? Is it going to automate? Is it going to bring more quality to the client? Is it going to make more money? Things like that.
Yeah. So would it for you, working in this time and seeing the collapse of FTX and a lot of hype leave this space, is it a positive for you? Are you happy about it?
No.
I mean, sorry. Let me rephrase the question. Not in the sense that this big scandal happened and that many people got screwed over, but in the sense that, like, I would guess that a lot of people who, there's this expression, like, when the tide, I'm going to screw up this expression, but when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked, right? And the idea is that, like, when things are good, everyone looks like a genius and everyone's doing well. And then after this scandal, a lot of the people who were not serious about these new technologies, who were maybe just playing games to try to make money without actually adding any value at all, they get wiped out. So that's what I mean when I was asked, like, was it a good thing, do you think? Are you happy working in this space now? Or I imagine too, um, I've found it myself too, when things are going well, when like there's something that is captivating too, when everyone is saying that Web3 is going to be this big thing. It's easy to get caught up yourself, I think, in the hype. Have you found that at times too? So kind of, I guess, two different questions there. Again, just about the hype around Web3.
Yeah, yeah. There's good and bad in it. I think. I personally didn't invest in any big amounts of money in NFTs or FTX. I didn't invest, so I wasn't really affected. The only way I'm affected, probably, yeah, it gives a bad image to crypto, right? In general, and people, the same way people were hyped up without paying attention to the substance. Right now, many are, the other extreme, right? As soon as you mention a token or something, they're like, "Oh, it's a scam," but that's not the case, really. So it's bad because what happened, because many people obviously lost big amounts of money, right? And but it's also good because it kind of filters out all this hype, and maybe at some point people will pay attention to the core, right? Just not pay attention to the hype, but what's underneath. What's just as I mentioned, what is the company using this for, and what's the added value, and not just get carried away with all this hype, right?
Yeah, I love how at the end of the day, it really is simple in that sense. It's like, what is the actual value being provided by these technologies? And when I was, the times where I've been most excited about, like NFTs, let's say, when all of that, when these $1 million JPEGs were being sold, I thought that is the stupidest thing. I cannot believe that people are doing that. I just couldn't see the value in it. I mean, fair enough if you like art and I don't know. But when I did see, there were moments where I would listen to a podcast where someone was using NFTs in a really interesting way that seemed to just be, no, really like at its core, just a way of being a member of a club, let's say, the holder of an NFT. But there were interesting use cases in the sense that like an interesting blend between the real world and like digital technologies, in the sense that like if I'm an NFT holder, I can, go to this bar and like drinks are paid for me, kind of thing. And I've been in arguments with people before where I'm continually challenged with the question, well, how is that different from just a normal membership? And I still struggle answering that question. But at its core, where I think maybe what got me excited about NFTs previously, and I'm still excited about this particular use case, is it just seems to be this kind of new, exciting model for creators, for business owners, this new model that you can use to interact with your community. With people who follow you, and a different way to monetize that does provide value if you keep making your community and the desire to be in your community grows and grows. I'm rambling now and I'm not articulating this properly, but the point is, it always just comes down to the stuff that has always been there, which is like, is this thing actually valuable? What value does it provide?
Yeah. Yeah, they call it utility of the NFT or a token, right? So there's been lots of, also when it was overhyped, everyone was talking about utility and stuff, but not many were paying attention to it. But is the utility okay? It's an NFT. Yeah, there's some kind of a picture on it. Okay, got it. But it doesn't justify the incredibly high value. So what's the utility, right? So what makes it? If it's a membership, what's the membership for? In our case, we use the NFTs, non-transferable NFTs, as basically like decentralized certificates. That's the added value. This is what we're using those for. It's a certificate which is assigned to you. You cannot give it to someone else, which does make sense, right? It's decentralized, so it's not just connected to Stack3, but you can also use it anywhere else to kind of validate your skills. Yeah, that's the use case for us, for example.
Going back to AI, I saw that you're working on tools and using AI to help with project scoping and tasks like that. How else do you see new AI advancements and just AI technology in general fitting into what you guys do at Stack3?
Yeah, definitely. Regarding AI, super excited about AI, and we immediately started experimenting and already implementing in our operations. The first thing where we identified the biggest added value is the scoping. Using ChatGPT or the Open AI API for scoping, just like that, it's a bit difficult. So you kind of have to train the model with scoping with old scoping data, and then you have to engineer kind of structure appropriate prompts and workflows, and it seems to be working really well. And we see other more opportunities for where we can use AI, and the biggest added value of AI is, of course, the speed, the quickness, and automation, right? It's really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's going to impact every area of life. Really, there's just it seems like all I talk about these days is AI. So, yeah, it's going to be amazing to see what happens. Okay, last question for you. Perfect world, 3 to 5 years from now, if everything goes well with Stack3 and all of the different projects that you're working on, what does that world look like for you professionally within Stack3, let's say?
Yeah, us reaching our vision of becoming a full DAO with plenty of highly skilled builders, a great network, with tokens having good value, and using as much as AI as possible to automate the processes, and basically reaching our goal, our vision of having a scalable, decentralized agency working with utilizing no code a lot.
Amazing. Well, Albert, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you doing this, and I personally feel a lot smarter coming out of this conversation, just in terms of understanding what you're actually up to and how you're building your organization and just all of the different things you're working on. So, again, thanks for coming on, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you very much. My pleasure. It was great. Thanks,
Awesome.
Jacob. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.